Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5.
Let's get right to it, Gaardsy.
Let's go to Orlando, Florida last night.
Wolves in the front court with possession, up by 7. And on the move, left of the lane, rises and throws it down with the right hand. He got fouled. Elevate and eviscerate. Highlight reel dunk for Anthony Edwards. And even this Orlando crowd appreciates that. Just a little handoff from Nas, and Ant does the rest. Rises and hammers over Anthony Black.
Who Ant gave no credit to himself for hammering over Anthony Black. He said he's a guard. Doesn't count. More importantly, Julius Randle played well last night. Joined our guy Sam Mitchell on NBA TV. Watched a little bit of that earlier this morning. But the Timberwolves get their 3rd straight win. Randle, 23 points, 10 boards, and had 21, including that dunk, 7 assists. 104-89 was the victory. So, little 2-game road trip down there. New Orleans, who, by the way, have already suspended Zion Williamson for a game. Did you see that?
Missing, showing up late for practices, I guess.
So, I'm going to pull up the standings here because they have a big game tomorrow night, right back here in the House of Pain.
Memphis?
The Memphis Grizzlies, with their 24-14 record, coming to town. The Wolves are now in the 7th spot, just a half game back behind the Los Angeles Lakers. And I could do the math. They're basically 3 games behind Memphis right now, 3.5. So
Memphis is 4?
3.
3, okay.
Yeah, Denver is 4. Denver's here in a couple of weeks, right. But they did what they needed to do, right? When you got to handle these teams that are a little bit depleted, even though Orlando's a top 4 seed right now in the East, you got to take care of business. And for a 2nd straight night, 3rd straight night, really, the Wolves did.
Yeah, Orlando's down like 5 guys. Again, you don't apologize for winning, but you have to, I think, factor that in. The Pelicans are a mess. And even though that was a schedule loss for us, we found a way to get a victory.
We did.
And took care of business.
Loved what Conley said with you, by the way. We never followed up on that. When you asked him, he goes, the schedule losses separate the good teams.
Yeah, that's it.
Basically.
What the good teams do.
The good teams win them, the bad teams don't.
So it's a nice little run. I'm not ready to celebrate yet. I don't think you are either. Let me add this, too. I'm reaching a point on those kinds of dunks that I'm almost getting annoyed because it's a nice play. It's fun to watch, but the sideline shot of all the players, looking stunned and
Luka
their arms in the, it's like, okay, there are so many more important basketball plays. And so I'm not against it. I get it. Part of that sport is that level of supreme power and athleticism in one fell swoop, but I'm not as aroused by it, I guess, as I'm supposed to be. It's just because the whole exercise of it becomes so repetitive, and I don't believe it was the key to the game. I'm sorry. It's a good angle. They increased the lead afterwards. I ain't buying it. I'm not. I think it's put it this way. You never hear about it when after the dunk, the other team your team ends up losing, or they actually lose more their lead or whatever. Win. So I think it's become a little bit overcooked for me.
The only pointing like Luka was doing last night at the X was the officials pointing to the back of the Wild net.
Yeah,
because we were setting it up, and by the way, I think there is something to this. Colorado's good. Wild had nobody. They didn't know who was going to play goal. Fleury was sick, the whole bit. Gus Bus is in there. Colorado beats the Wild 6-1, and the deflating news gets more deflating as they've got a San Jose-Vegas back-to-back coming up. That starts tomorrow night. You've heard the liners during the show today. Kaprizov, Brodin, and Brock Faber, none of them are going. They might all be at Target Center tomorrow night watching Wolves-Grizzlies. They are not going on the trip. So the Wild lose last night to Colorado. I think the Avs, I heard Tennessee say, are within 3 points of them now.
There's a couple teams coming.
In the Central Division, so things are tightening up a little bit, Hockey Ambassador.
Well, it's hard, again, to get, I think, too angry with what took place there. Down, as you mentioned now, I think 3 defensemen. Is it more concerning that for the 2nd straight game, your number 1 goaltender, probably should have been pulled, but they couldn't pull him because they didn't have anybody to basically, Fleury.
That's right, because he was pulled a couple of nights ago, too, against St. Louis.
Exactly. Yeah. And Fleury was sick, right? So, I am still confounded. I asked this question of hockey guy Brett Blakemore. Is this just the nature of hockey, this many injuries? Because it doesn't seem like everybody gets hurt as often as we do. And I'm not saying that means we must be weak and frail or that the injuries aren't real, but it's almost reached a point of absurdity, has it not?
Yeah.
The number of injuries that they have faced, even as they're trying to get people back together.
Let's do this real quick. Let me make sure it's still there. Going to go to Columbus, Ohio with a real quick.
Just on
Listen to
fire.
this.
Now Wood is knocked
Gopher
down.
Hockey live
Takes a
listener.
high shot
Whoa.
from Smith.
There's
Come
Wally.
on, referees. Get your arms into the air now and then, will ya?
Is that Mike Grimm?
Maybe they have BO. There's a shot right on goal. Clark looking for the rebound, but it's swept away. Now Kurth is getting hammered by the Smith. What is wrong
good
with
time
these
to jump
guys?
in.
There we go.
Finally, he's
Nicoletti.
calling something.
He's not calling both.
I
of them,
think he is, Pat.
Uh-oh.
Well, he missed the first three.
Oh man.
Jeezy, where do these guys come from?
This is brilliant.
Barnes?
Did you time this?
No.
Did you plan this?
I didn't.
This is brilliant.
Not Kurth. Yet.
This could be explosive.
Well, that could
Oh,
be a
fair
head
enough.
shot there.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking, Pat.
Here comes the Planet Fitness
Smith
review.
really
Ready for
got
this?
his stick up, not only in the face of
I
Wood.
tell you what, Connor Kurth had the shift of the year for Minnesota. I
Who
mean,
we playing?
Ohio
in two
State.
different sequences.
It's an early game
He fought
because
off
Ohio State's
guys,
playing
got the
football
puck,
tonight.
made,
So
made
Ohio
a
State
play, made
officials
a
moved
good
it up
hard
to 4
cut
o'clock. It's
to
on
the
Twin
front
Cities
that
News Talk, game
Everly-
11:30.
Oh, this
that
is
Everly stopped.
juicy.
Here's Pat
But I
Nicoletti.
tell you, Connor Kurth is playing tonight.
Wow. All right.
William Smith is a guy who's having his penalty call reviewed right now. He's a sophomore out of Toronto. Played 16 games and has 1 point.
That got kind of heated. I
got
want to see
very
the completion. I want the call to go
I
against
know.
us.
We'd like to hear it. Then they let them really
Yes.
melt down. And we capture it live.
Is this Mike Grimm?
Oh,
Pass that note on.
Yeah, this is only.
How long are they going to milk it?
Well, they're reviewing something.
Well, yeah.
Grimm, by the way,
Possible
coming up
headshot, apparently.
50 minutes from now, go for basketball in
Dateline
Wisconsin
Madison?
against the Badgers at the Kohl Center.
Pretty darn good.
Right here
Yeah,
on the
they
fan.
won it Wisconsin 3-2.
Violence is out of the question. We know that. Apparently not.
They're down 2-0
Come
to
on,
start
give
that
us the
game.
resolution. What's the call?
What are these guys
So that little
watching?
nugget. But we got to change that nugget around. Still a lengthy review going on now.
Oh, yeah.
by
We know, Wally.
The
Middle
two
of the top
referees,
five.
Anthony Victor and Jake Rakuki, who have Pat and I wondering a little bit where the whistles have been so far.
Yeah, well, maybe he's adding them all up, and this will be a major, right? So you counted 3, so you got 5 on the major. It'll be close, right, Wally?
Well, the guy got his stick up pretty high. I don't know if it was a Kurth that he hit the last one or Wood.
Yeah, it was.
And he was
well, I don't
nailing
know
Wood
which one he's
earlier,
looking
too.
at, because he could have looked at the Kurth one, and he could have looked at the Wood one.
Yep. Well, at least it'll be a minor penalty, so the Gophers will embark on a power play
All
here.
right, that's good. That's good
That's
enough
enough
resolution.
for now, yeah. Wow.
So anyway, that's
Well,
on
we
Twin
walked
Cities
into a
News Talk,
hornet's nest there.
AM 1130.
Yeah.
I mentioned Ohio State's playing tonight in the Cotton Bowl, I believe, against Texas. They're
That's correct.
6.5-point favorites or 6-point favorites. Last night turned into a bit of a barn burner. Penn State was in total control. Notre Dame fights back. Now, there's big controversy. If you're James Franklin and the Penn State Nittany Lions, they get the ball back because they got a big sack with like 30 seconds
Yes.
left. Notre Dame had to punt. And they get the ball back. They have a nice run, like 10 or 15 yards. And then they put it in the hands of their quarterback, Drew Allar, who throws an interception. Notre Dame runs a couple of plays, kicks a game-winning field goal to advance to the national championship game with a 27-24 victory. I have no problem with James Franklin putting the ball in the hands of his quarterback.
I have none either.
Did you watch it live? Did you happen to be watching it?
I did not.
So Greg McElroy, the guy doing it on ESPN, the old Alabama quarterback, as they're basically in the huddle on that drive, spends 45 seconds talking about, and here's a guy in Drew Aller who's always going to make the right decision.
Ooh.
You got to trust him in this situation. He's not going to put the ball in harm's way because he really hasn't for the couple of years that he's been a starter. And right when the ball left his hand, you just knew it wasn't good. It was across the field. It was late. It was over the middle. Notre Dame picks it up, and that kid's got to live with that for the rest of his life because Notre Dame goes on to win.
They get they drive enough for the game winning. Was it a 42-yard field goal? 41 or 42?
Yeah, somewhere
I believe,
around
for
there.
the game win. Notre Dame is, I think, proven to be the classic they don't overwhelm you, but it's the old they just find a way to win. They find a way to hang around. They find a way to, and everybody's done the joke. LSU guy says, I can't win at Notre Dame. You can't win the big one at Notre Dame. Brian Kelly. And guess what? Notre Dame's going to have a chance to win the big one. And Brian Kelly is still languishing and continuing to perfect his Southern accent, his Cajun accent in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
I think that's a good place to end it.
It is. Let's get to some A-section stuff real quick. We'll have Lavelle at 5:30 and maybe a date with football history on this very date. Not necessarily, in this case, Vikings related before we wrap things up. You were out for good reason yesterday, Gaardsy, and so you missed a Barrero meltdown when I don't even know how we got into we were talking about the Southern California brush fires, and by the way, had a very good conversation starting with that with Craigers, who is in an area that is not as directly affected, but obviously is very aware of what's happening around him. And earlier in the show, I got into because of some texts I received, we got into the subject of this, for me, pathetic, childish game that apparently there's a lot of people, or at least some loud people, want to play regarding who it's okay to root for during a time of tragedy. And the suggestion was that if the individuals had $1 million home or more, they're not worth rooting for. And in fact, in some cases, there seemed to even be a sentiment of reveling in whatever their pain is because they are more likely to have the means to recover. I can't stand the concept of it. I tried to lay out the reasons why. I think it's a game in which you deaden your own soul and you hurt yourself if you waste your time trying to draw distinctions. And then it's, what if the house in California was $500,000? Is it okay there? Do you check them off, or does it have to be less than that? What's the deal? And part of my point was, you could say, as a couple texters did, it's just things. But that leaves out so much for people when they lose their homes, correct? No matter what the price of those homes are. Those homes house memories, right? Those homes might house, more specifically, even photographs and pictures that do have meaning beyond stuff, like a couch or a Barca lounger. And overnight, I got a hold of two different sound bites I want to play to, I hope, emphasize the point that you're deadening yourself if you're participating in this crap, no matter what you think from a class standpoint and what this country does or doesn't do or who it helps and who it does not help. I want to play the shorter one first, and I don't even know if it's established what location this is in. This is an individual who is attempting to talk with a woman who has lost her home. Let's listen to the exchange.
This is your house?
This is my house. This one right here. We moved in 26 years ago. And we did the floors, and we put in windows and doors and painted and just put, my grandchildren loved it. My son and my daughter-in-law, my family, we hosted Christmas Eve and Christmas Day here, and everybody was here. My little house that I loved. My husband just had his 4th cancer surgery. I poured everything into it. My nephew.
I'm so sorry. I really am. I don't even know what to say.
That's okay. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just. We haven't been sleeping. We haven't slept. We're staying at a hotel. We have nowhere to go. We don't know what we're doing. We were close neighbors. Buzz and Todd. His mom passed away and they took over the house. John just lost his wife that he adored, but was taking care of that house. She was a Superior Court judge. And Beverly and John, so much love. She was so incredible. And the house is gone.
I just can't believe they're all gone.
They're all gone. See, Debbie and us and Tina, our children went to school together from kindergarten. Our kids are in their 47 years old. And Debbie's 47-year-old son tragically passed away last August. her oldest child. Her grief is so deep, I can't imagine.
I have no idea how much that woman's home was worth. I don't care. You do not have a shred of humanity if you do not just simply relate to the pain and the way she attempts, I think, to remind us that a house is a home, potentially, with memories, connections, etc. I do know how rich Steve Kerr is. He is an extremely well-compensated head basketball coach for the Golden State Warriors, right? You could say he is very much a man of privilege. Now, it turns out he grew up in Pacific Palisades. He was asked about the disaster in Southern California. I believe this might have been yesterday, not exactly sure, at some point during a press conference. This is a little longer. This runs about 3 minutes. But I also think it is worth our time to listen with the reporters to what Kerr has to say about what he knows about his mother and about the house he grew up in.
How you doing with just everything that's going on in Southern California the last 48, 72 hours?
Yeah, it's been tough. My family's fine. My mom is in good hands, and but her house is gone, and it's so I've been on the phone with my siblings quite a bit. Family calls just with my mom, and she's got a lot of support and friends, and so she's safe and sound. But that's my hometown, and all my friends who are from there, pretty much they've all lost their homes, their family homes, childhood homes. Our whole high school's gone. The town looks like it's just been completely wiped out. It's surreal and devastating. But fortunately, almost everyone escaped. The pictures reminded me of Lahaina, from a couple of years ago, and so I'm so happy that there wasn't the loss of life that people in Hawaii experienced, and but it's hard to even fathom how Pacific Palisades rebuilds and how it becomes a thriving community again. It's shocking.
Steve, was that your mom's house? Was that the house you grew up in?
Yeah. 1969. My parents bought that house, and I was just there, 2 weeks ago for dinner. Night before our game. We just celebrated my mom's 90th birthday there this past summer. We had 100 guests up on that hillside, and a beautiful night, great memories, and it's an idyllic place. It's a beautiful town. Sunsets every night, just amazing memories. And my dad taught at UCLA, and so that drive from Pacific Palisades down Sunset Boulevard, to the campus at UCLA is one I've made a million times, and so many great memories. And then to see the images of Sunset Boulevard in the Palisades, just shocking. It looks like apocalyptic. And devastating.
Is it, I guess, as you think about it, is it the memories that are, that hurt the most to lose? Or, I don't know if there's valuables or...
Yeah, I don't think my mom or any of us, cares too much about lost items. She took as much as she possibly could, photos and paintings and everything that she could possibly get out. She did, but it's the memories. It's a lifetime of memories and occasions and birthday parties and everything else, and to just see the destruction, the devastation. It's just, like I said, unfathomable.
Steve Kerr, I think he said 1969?
1969.
And his mom had lived in that house ever since. Am I suggesting a GoFundMe for the Kerr family? No. Is he? No. On a human level, is it okay to have some empathy and some feeling for even someone as privileged as Steve Kerr regarding that loss? I'd say yes. And I'd say if, as more texters come in and send stuff to me that apparently are triggered by the suggestion that there is a shared humanity to this story, I can't help you. I'm glad I don't live in your world.
No kidding.
I'm really glad I don't live in your small-ass world that has nothing to do with the larger question of corporate greed and us versus them, etc. It's a game of, I've said it before, it's a game of performance. It's fun to play. It's harmless because nothing's going to happen to you if you play it. And I guess for some of those individuals, they actually they get some kind of satisfaction out of it when in the end, beyond whatever emotion they associate with almost enjoying this pain, they ain't getting nothing. So I have absolutely no idea. But as long as we're doing this show, as long as I'm in charge of this show, we ain't participating in that crap. And you can say, oh, of course, you're always protecting the big guy. It's got nothing to do with the big guy. And in fact, in the first case, these individuals, regardless of how much money they did or didn't make, are symbols. And there are a number of places. I got texts from people yesterday from California. I have relatives out there that aren't rich.
Right. Same.
Who are the same stories.
I have friends of mine.
That's the shared story, is the loss. And if you can't relate on that level, like I said, you have a dead soul as far as I'm concerned. Anything else you want to add?
Well, first of all, it got me thinking about what would you take, right? Because they were talking about the photos and the paintings, and you can't get everything and you can't grab anything. It does in your own way. You go, okay, well, if our house is going, what are we grabbing? And I also was struck by the fact that Steve's mom lived there from 1969. He's obviously gone on to a great career, made a bunch of money. She probably could have moved with him elsewhere to other places. I know he's got other siblings and stuff. But why did she stay there? Because it was her house, right? I mean, it was her house. 1969, that was the house. I'm sure for Steve, a lot of great memories. Not that it should matter here, but we all know about how his dad died. He mentioned his dad, who was killed overseas, right?
Correct.
And
assassinated.
I don't know how old Kerr is, 60 years old, something like that, probably. Talk about driving from his parents' house down Sunset to where his dad worked. That, to me, hit at a whole different level, because that's a grown man thinking about his childhood.
That could be anywhere. By the way,
exactly right.
Oh, yeah, of course, that's a nice drive. What about some other drives that aren't so nice? It doesn't matter.
It's a memory for him. And, yeah, it was so. And J.J. Redick, by the way, had a statement today that I saw our buddy Mike Trudell, the Lakers reporter, tweet out. And they just moved to Pacific Palisades, and he got very emotional talking about it because he just moved his wife and family all the way across the country. They loved living in Brooklyn, new opportunity. And he said, and he said something about what his wife said. I didn't want to move. I wasn't interested in this, but this community, this neighborhood, it all means something to me. The rec center that they went to the first weekend. I mean, really rough stuff here that's going on. And so I'm with you. If it doesn't hit you, that's a you problem.
And I would say, again, a texter say, well, how about putting the microphone in front of people, quote unquote, poor people, which is, of course, a great overarching term that we don't even know what it means. Like, okay, well, how do we define poor exactly? Well, you define it any way you want to try to make this asinine point. The fact is, there are endless interviews from people in all sorts of situations. And by the way, the first one, I don't even know how fancy the house was. It shouldn't matter, but there is every effort to just tell the story wherever it is taking place. And if you if you really mean what you say, you can find those interviews. They exist. But in that world, you have to assume that, nope, they won't do those interviews because we don't care about them. We don't know who the woman is in the first one. We have no idea who the woman is in the first one. And if you're playing the boogeyman game, they're purposefully not interviewing the people who no one cares about. They're everywhere. CNN is everywhere. Several newspaper outlets are everywhere on this particular story. You don't want to care about that because it doesn't fit your narrative. That's your problem, not. What the? Already?
It's the final segment. It's brought to you by American Pressure. Show wrap.
That's exactly right. Oh, I'm just waiting for the sound of the actual show wrap. The voiceover.
It's the Bumper
There
to
it
Bumper
is.
Show Wrap.
There it is. Out at 6 today for Golden Gopher men's basketball. Dateline Madison, Wisconsin, where Mike Grimm is already complaining about the officials. And the game hasn't even started yet. Home cooking at Cole. Is it still Cole Center?
Cole Center.
Still called that?
Yeah, usually is.
Yeah, I figured that's what it would be. That's at 6. That's why we're out at the top of the hour. Lavelle is with us now. Let me ask you a question early, Lavelle.
I might have an answer.
How old were you on January 10, 1982?
6 going on 7.
6 going on 7. My guess is not old enough.
Wait a minute. Did you say 82?
82.
I was going to say add a few
Sorry.
more.
Oh.
16 going on 17. Sorry.
His math's no better than ours, is what we're finding out. Then you are maybe old enough to remember that on this date in 1982, the Cincinnati Bengals hosted the San Diego Chargers in the AFC Championship game, and with a kickoff temperature of 9 degrees below zero and a minus 59-degree wind chill, this was the coldest game in National Football League history. They called it, for that reason, the Freezer Bowl. Do you remember it?
I don't remember that. So was that Ken Anderson versus Dan Fouts or something like that?
Well, I think that's right, actually. I don't know if it was Anderson. It was definitely Fouts. We can double check. And indeed, the homestanding Bengals ran away with the victory. This was even colder than the Ice Bowl. And I do
Billy
remember.
Joe Tolliver?
Riverfront Stadium. It was. Oh my God! It was. I can't even imagine. And I guess about something like what number did I see? Something like 15,000 people did not show up. I don't know that I could have blamed them in this particular case.
Ken Anderson was the Bengals
Kenny Anderson was okay. For the record, it's worth noting that the Bengals coach was Forrest Gregg, and of course, he played in the legendary Ice Bowl game against the Dallas Cowboys, the 67 NFL championship game at Lambeau. He was right tackle for Lombardi's Packers. He helped Bart Starr score on the quarterback sneak. And that game was minus 13 degrees, wind chill minus 48. And he even said, I was as cold today as I have ever been. One would assume perhaps even colder. And a week earlier, for the record, the Chargers played in Miami, Florida, eliminated the Dolphins in 84-degree heat.
That's a big change.
So they lost 140 degrees from one game or from 1 week to the next.
I can't imagine standing out and watching that as a fan. I went out for about 10 minutes during the Winter Classic game at Target Field between the Wild and the Blues. And I couldn't take it after 10 minutes. I was like, I don't know how you people are doing this. And I just remember people being under blankets, swearing because the Wild were losing, and just the empty hand warmer wrappers were strewn all over the ground and the concourse, every level of Target Field. And that was minus 3, I want to say.
Probably, right?
God, minus 9? I can't see it.
Yeah, that's crazy stuff. And that's when, of course, football is football, because that was outdoor, obviously, by definition, has to be.
The Blair Walsh game approached, it was probably colder than the Winter Classic, if you recall, because it was at TCF. And I remember we had Collinsworth on that week because it was an NBC game. And he brought it up that he played in the Freezer Bowl.
That's right. Good point.
And he basically said, don't be a hero, stop with this. And then, of course, Bud Grant walks in sleeveless.
Without a shirt. I didn't think he wore a shirt, did he? Well, at least in the legend, that's what we're going to go with.
But he straight up said, don't try to be a hero. Yeah. I get it, you're from Minnesota, but this is cold.
Extremely cold is what it is. All right, let's get the official Lavelle Neal III prediction. Rams hosting, well, kind of, sort of. This is now the game being moved to Glendale, Arizona. They're the home team, at least technically speaking. Everybody assumes there'll probably be more Vikings fans in Arizona than there will be Rams fans. That might have even been true if they'd played the game at SoFi. What is the official Lavelle Neal III prediction for Monday night?
First of all, I know for a fact that some of my retired friends who are in Arizona were ready to hop on SeatGeek.com this morning to buy tickets for the game. So I think there's going to be an interesting Minnesota presence. in Glendale
yes, I'm
on
sure.
Monday.
Yeah.
I'm nervous about this game just because of the fact that the Rams have played better football down the stretch, and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are healthy. And I know that Brian Flores knows that Puka's playing this time. You know, he has time to prepare for Puka. Apparently, he didn't know that in Week 8 when they faced each other before. But I just think the things McVay can do with those two guys in the running game is going to be a big challenge for the Vikings. I can't remember. I think Cashman was injured, I think, for the game, and he's going to be healthy this time. So that could definitely help against the run. But the way they use their running game, and basically a lot of those are extended handoffs to the receivers and things like that, that could be really challenging for Brian Flores' defense. So, but I still think the Vikings are going to figure out a way to eke out a 26-24 victory. I think they're going to grind it out a little bit. I personally think, I know Charch mentioned it today, that the Rams' run defense has improved as the season's gone along, but I went and looked it up. In 6 out of the Rams' 7 losses, they've given up at least 126 yards on the ground. Okay. The Cardinals rushed for 240 yards against them. Saquon Barkley's 255-yard game came against them. And they still, except for a couple games down the stretch, they've still given up over 100 yards rushing in games. So I think with your boy Aaron Jones, I think actually the emergence, the appearance of Cam Akers in this game could be huge. He's coming off a decent game against the Lions because he had 68 yards rushing. I know 58 of them came on one run. But Akers is a guy that they can trust, to spell Aaron for a series if they needed to, because he could catch passes out of the backfield. He can pass protect. I think he could be functional in this game. I think the combination of Jones and Akers will provide a running boost that will help take the onus off of Stan Darnold, proving everyone that he could throw again. He will need to throw. He will need to hit open receivers this time. He will need to get rid of the ball if he sees a blitz. But I think it's going to help him to have a better running game. So I think the Vikings are going to figure out a way to respond and win 26-24, making the Lions game a good loss because it has forced them to be on point, dot their I's, cross their T's, and clear up some loose ends here. So I'm saying the Vikings squeak by.
I think, so you, on the basis of what you just said, you're assuming something I don't know that you can assume, and that is that KOC will allow the Vikings to take advantage of the opportunity to run. That's a key part of this thing. He's got to go along with it. He's got to believe in what I think, logically, you're right, is a way out of the box. And I don't know if you can necessarily make that supposition.
That's very fair. And as soon as you said that, I started thinking about your nice little fireside chat with KLC during training camp when you demanded, are you ready to commit to the run more this year? And he said yes. Remember that? He said yes on your show during training camp. I don't know how much that has materialized. Aaron Jones has rushed for over 1,100 yards this year. So he has been fairly effective. He's played in all 17 games, Carl Gershman, so he hasn't broken down, although he's had to maybe sit out a little bit in a couple games. Then he had fumble problems earlier, too, that they had to work around. But it exists there, and I think instead of just sitting there and say, Sam, okay, you're going to make all the throws you couldn't make last week and just rely on that to win this game, I don't think it's possible. So I think KLC will have a blend here.
Sean Salisbury had a similar score. I think he has Vikings winning 24-20. I think this is, regardless, a close game. If the Vikings win, I think it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be, they're going to have a chance to do any kind of a rout. The Rams are sneaky good. I think the Vikings should be better.
It's time for Dr. Dan.
Uh-oh. What happened? We got an inbox item you want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, Lavelle, just hang on. No, I just hit the wrong button.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe there's something
User error.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you hit a late.
bingo.
Yeah.
Seriously, you bring it out in people, Lavelle.
Well played. That was.
I earned it.
That was very well played. That was brilliant. I lean, for the second straight week, I lean the opposing team. I think but if KOC follows through with what you're suggesting, and for me it would also be, don't be afraid of the short pass. Don't be afraid to go down, that you don't assume you have to go downfield. Get Darnold some completions early. And here's another thing. if the Vikings are playing from ahead in this game, I really do like their chances. My concern is it's going to be one of those games where they're not. They're sort of both meandering. If I've tried this scenario on several other guests this week. Vikings trail 13-3 at the half. Darnold, they've been in the red zone 3 times. One time they had to settle for 3. A second time they went for it, and Darnold missed a receiver in the end zone. And the third time, he threw an interception in the end zone. Okay? So he's struggling. What are the odds that KOC would have the cojones to come out for the second half on the first possession with Daniel Jones as the starting quarterback?
I think I would say moderate to high. Here's my thing about this, because I was sitting next to PA in the back of the press room yesterday when KLC was being asked about when he started talking about Daniel Jones and his availability. And I just got the feeling that he's going to be on the roster for the game. And I would not be surprised if they put a package in for him and unleash him early in the game. I'm not saying he's Taysom Hill, but I could see Jones coming in, and he's a little more mobile. He can run. His legs could be a threat here. And maybe just to give the Rams a little bit of a look. So if that happens, then it will be easier for him to lean on Jones in the second half if the Vikings are trailing 13-3. I don't see it happening. The Rams' defense is solid. It's not spectacular. Everybody hypes the defensive line, and it deserves its flowers. But if you look at sack totals, they really hasn't translated to a lot of sacks for them this year. So I don't know, even if they wanted to bring more pressure, if they will be able to successfully. I think they could be scored upon, and I think the Vikings have the personnel to do it.
Yeah.
We need to see T.J. Hawkinson step up, and we need to see Jordan Addison get involved in addition to J.J. Because for all the problems that Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp can pose the Vikings, the Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson should be posing just as much of a problem for the Rams defense.
Well, we'll see. It will be very interesting indeed to watch it. So you do have a close game. Are you going?
I'm not going.
You're not in the Armada? I'm shocked. So what about next week? If they get back to Detroit, and it doesn't have to be Detroit, they could potentially even get a home playoff game next week if things go right. Would you be on the next road trip if it's Detroit next week?
That's possible. We've discussed that. I don't know if it's going to be a sure thing, but we've had the discussion about me being part of the next excursion if the Vikings win, or I'm going to say when the Vikings win on Monday.
Ooh, that's very, very sneaky the way you put it. What else did I have? Oh, no surprise. I think we'll all agree that the game was moved, correct? Pretty much had to be.
Oh, we were talking about that yesterday. We were like, how much advance time does the league need to give teams to call an audible and move to Arizona if they had to? I just thought by the end of the day would be the latest, but they came to their senses at about 6 o'clock. I mean, the Vikings equipment truck was leaving today, not knowing where to go. Okay? The plan was to leave to head west, but they didn't know if they need to go to Arizona or California.
Yeah.
So I think it was going to just kind of meander around middle America before it got clearance as to where it's supposed to go. So you think about it like that way. Something needs to be moved and set up, national broadcast, cameras, personnel, all that stuff. So it just seemed like they had to make a call sooner than later. So I'm glad they did. Plus, there's weather forecasts of more 50 to 60 mile an hour gusts on Monday, and the beat writers from the Rams were showing pictures of fire smoke near the practice facility. It just comes to the point we just have to come to your senses and do what's right,
On that note, we're going to let you go. I got to get one quick item from the A section real quick. Enjoy the football over the weekend, and we will chat next week. Thank you.
Folks, Diamond Awards coming up on January 23rd. Tickets are available at diamondawards.umn.edu. We've sold 380 tickets. We're going for a record, which is 557, and we think we got a shot this year. It's the 20th annual Diamond Awards, raising funds for neurological research at the University of Minnesota.
Godspeed, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lavelle Neal III. Real quick, this is an exclusive out of the Wall Street Journal. Did you see this story, Gaardsy? One of the utilities delivering electricity to fire-ravaged areas of Los Angeles has not implemented an increasingly used safety protocol intended to prevent its equipment from igniting blazes, a measure that every other big California power provider has in place. The Los Angeles Department of Water and Power has not developed a plan to proactively shut off parts of its system during windstorms to reduce the risk of sparks from its power lines. Regulatory filings show other California utilities do so periodically when fire risk is high. As dangerous winds threatened to buffet Los Angeles, LADWP's system remained energized until the windstorm caused significant damage and knocked out power for tens of thousands of customers. The causes of the wildfires blazing in and around Los Angeles, which have killed at least 5 individuals and destroyed thousands of homes and buildings, are under investigation. It remains to be determined whether power lines played a role in any of them, as they have, though, in past fires in California and elsewhere. This is a big issue in Lahaina, if you recall, as well. It's a Wall Street Journal exclusive, and for me, this is the kind of reporting we need to see, right? Now, this might not be the last word on this story, but I've talked about the blame game that starts even before the tragedy is done. That is wearying, I think, to the rest of us. But that's not the same as saying that stories should not be followed, that reporters, if they're doing their jobs, aren't asking difficult questions, right? Ultimately, I think we're going to find out again, and this isn't helpful and convenient for the Sharks and the Jets. That's probably going to be more than one thing here. Mother Nature, global warming, maybe a number of bad decisions, maybe not very good prep in some cases. My guess is it's going to be a combo platter. That's not as sexy because everyone's decided, well, it's actually because, you're too worried about woke stuff compared to what's important. And that may or may not be a factor. In a lot of cases, it's got nothing to do with this story. But that is an interesting wrinkle worth following because Lahaina, that was a very big issue. And the fact that this is the one company in California that did not apparently have in place and implement the items, procedures that one would think might, again, help the cause. Not going to solve the problem, but help the cause. I think a pretty significant story, so I wanted to bring it to people's attention before we wrap up the show. We're out early today for Golden Gopher men's basketball. They are back in action, still looking for their first Big Ten victory in Madison, Wisconsin, taking on the Badgers, obviously. 2-hour edition of sermons on Sunday, obviously, with the Vikings playing on Monday night. And I'm working on a couple of guests, Vikings-Rams related there. That'll be between 9 and 11. Anything else you want to mention before we go?
I want to thank Allery's for bringing us Lavelle.
Good point.
Allery's Bar and Grill, downtown St. Paul. Your home of free wild shuttles, free parking, and wild shuttles.
I appreciate you saying that. Enough said tonight. Pierre is in for you because you had other duties. That's 9:30 on both Fox 9 and Fox 9 Plus as well. Enjoy the weekend.
Whenever you want me, I'll be there. Where are we, America? Why don't you put your pants back on, Slappy?